Want to say good morning to you, good morning to you, good morning to you. 35 minutes past 8 o'clock hour. Of course, we're not on regular television today, but we are on Facebook Live, I believe. We're definitely on Facebook Live. What about YouTube? And we're on YouTube. So, yeah, that's what we'll be today. Okay. And when I leave here, we'll get the station back on the air. For those who watch via television, they'll be able to see it later tonight. Later tonight. Okay. You know what? I just thought about something I might just start doing. Anyway, you can share the Facebook Live video for those who say he ain't coming on. It's 8:35. He is not here today. Good morning. Not a lot to talk about today. Of course, we've got that crazy rain on yesterday. I mean, crazy lightning and thunderstorms and bolts of lightning and this, that, and the third. What is this? Let me copy this. 1 second here. Peace. Okay. So 36 minutes past 8 o'clock hour this morning on Wncr-Tv Now as we talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. Again, not television today. We're just hanging out on the radio, hanging out on Facebook Live and YouTube as well. And what have we been talking about this week? I didn't come on yesterday. Yesterday was Juneteenth. A lot happened on Juneteenth. Various events, of course, today kicks off Rocky Mount June. Well, yesterday really kicked off Rocky Mount Juneteenth events with the A.B. Honor Roll award ceremony being held yesterday evening at Wncr-Tabernacle Church. So families across the area was at Wncr-Tabernacle yesterday as they gave certificates to various people. Let's see if we can make that happen. Yeah. So, where is this? Starts this one. Okay. So this was some of the photos or images from the Wncr-Tabernacle Church in Rocky Mount, where the Juneteenth committee or the Community Empowerment Committee were handing out scholarships at this particular time to various people who won them. And so, of course, that was the room there with family members and students who were later called from various schools in the community to get a certificate acknowledging their academic success. And so that happened again yesterday in Rocky Mount, North Carolina at Wncr-Tabernacle Church. And so congratulations once again to all of those individuals, those students who worked hard throughout the year and maintained that level of achievement. And again, there are others who are graduating and going to school, to college or somewhere thereabout as well. So academic success is always good for sure. Of course, today is Friday, means it's Fish Friday, but also we've got a Philly cheesesteak at Pop's Diner as well. So if you haven't stopped by there, today would be a good time to check that out too. One thing that happened yesterday via social media, yesterday being Juneteenth, there were a lot of comments about fighting crime in Rocky Mount as that she made such a post wishing that it would snow on yesterday. And so there were a number of calls to unfollow the page that she knew exactly what she was doing when she posted such a post on Juneteenth. And so there was many conversations about that. Then even before that, there was another video that was shared on social media in regards to a woman, I guess in the Wilson area, at least going to a Wilson business, which overheard a conversation, or maybe heard, maybe not overheard, maybe it was loud enough, I guess, to hear it. There was an earshot, I guess I'll say, a conversation about banks being closed on yesterday, and seemingly that it was saying that it was a worthless day, so to speak, to have. And so she basically got up and told them to give her car, that she will be going elsewhere, I guess, for her car service to be repaired. And so there were a growing number of people who, again, was calling for the reviews or such to be to give them like ones or something of that nature. I think since then, I think they might have contacted Google or Yelp or somebody and talked about the incident. Or, of course, I guess Yelp and as well, Google, whoever it was able to kind of restore their status back somewhat. But again, if people continue to do it, I don't think they'll continue to I think it deactivated Facebook page and a whole bunch of other stuff. No, one thing I thought was interesting was that one of the gentlemen or a gentleman in the post in that particular video say that Juneteenth was about reparations, and I think that we've got a long ways to go. In that this isn't the first year Juneteenth was celebrated or recognized as a federal holiday. And so at some point, I think people have the responsibility of educating themselves. I think a lot of confusion go on about various things because people just decide or desire to be ignorant of facts. And of course, Juneteenth is not about reparations. And I think most of the audience here, I hope all the audiences here understand what Juneteenth symbolized and what it is a day of remembrance of and why it is celebrated as a holiday. Juneteenth is, in my opinion, and others may have differently opinion about it, but is just as much as a black holiday as it is an American holiday, in that it was a situation involving the notification in Galveston, Texas, that you ain't got to work for free no more. You ain't got to work for free no more. And that is what had happened in that whole situation, and I would even say a declaration of winning a war in the process. And so that is much what it's about, and not about a call to pay folk for their ancestry work, but more or less to realize that there was a moment in the history of America, not even a moment, there were years in America in which there were people who literally worked, did a whole bunch of stuff, and got not one quarter for it. Caller, good morning, on the air.
Good morning, Brother Bronson. How we doing?
I'm doing well. Hope you are.
Look, Juneteenth could also be to blacks what the 4th of July is to the whites. Thank you.
To that point, yeah, I get it. Thank you. So it is 4th of July was the original settlers to America fighting for their independence from Great Britain. And I guess in a sense, I would say that those folks were enslaved to Britain. They were sent with resources and whatever to go and colonize a new area. And then those folks got together and said, listen, we're way across the pond. Why are we going to listen to what Great Britain is talking about? And we're going to organize amongst ourselves and fight them when they come over here, so to speak. And so I get it. And he did say in some way, and so, independence. Again, that is something that those individuals fought Britain for. I would say that the notification, Galveston, Texas, and the Emancipation Proclamation, which basically by President Abraham Lincoln at the time, in the southern states said, listen, you're not going to have slavery. You're not going to have slavery. And so that was, Well, and then again, I'll say that you did have enslaved folks fighting in that particular war too. So I get it, and I can see, sure enough, the comparisons there. But again, I guess I would say that the enslaved folks at that time were fighting, maybe not because they wanted to, but because they had to, based on their position and status in society. And so that's where I guess some of the differences is. But again, I can see some correlation there. But again, Juneteenth is that. And what I will say this is, in that same note, last year when Juneteenth was going on, you had the sitting president, Joe Biden, have a Juneteenth celebration on the White House lawn. I was there when it happened. Almost didn't get in, but we were able to get into the White House lawn and see all of that stuff firsthand. And this year, you have a sitting president who talks about how many non-working holidays it is, and that America's losing billions of dollars because places are closed. In fact, I looked at the number of places that were open on yesterday. But again, the contrast between this administration that we currently have and the previous administration, that on a day that is a federal holiday, that to me, if true, seemingly to give some signal that he may even want to reverse the idea of even having a Juneteenth in the first place as a federal holiday. That I don't quite get. And again, and that's why I would say that Juneteenth is just as much as an American holiday as it is for African Americans or black folk. That's something to, and let me see if I can find. And it was one post where I think they had a press conference on yesterday. And so the press secretary yesterday talked about, well, thank y'all for showing up to work. Do you thank them for showing up to work any other day? Any other holiday they may show up to work that we've had in 2025? Have you even had press conferences on holidays? I mean, that's something to think about. And so, and anyway, let me see if I can find that actual statement. In fact, let me see if I can find it. There it is, right there in my Facebook. I didn't even see it. So even ABC News report, I guess 6 hours ago, President Donald Trump took to a social media platform on Thursday to say there were too many non-working holidays in America. His comments came on Juneteenth, the federal holiday that commemorates the end of slavery in the U.S. And again, his press secretary backed it up with her comment. Take care, caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bronson.
Good morning.
I did try one of your Philly cheesesteaks yesterday.
Okay.
And they are very delicious. I'm glad that you're using real cheese and not that canned processed cheese. The meat, the onions, the bell peppers, the bread, everything was so tender. And I just wanted our community to know that if you want a Philly cheese sandwich or sub, go down to Pop's Diner. And while I have you on the phone, I hope you will allow me to make a comment this morning.
Okay.
When you announced your candidacy to run for Ward 3, I endorsed you. And like people are, we are all individuals. We know that everybody wouldn't. But I would hope and pray and thought that people would accept my opinion. I did talk about Tim Barnes and why I felt that he wasn't the right person for the position or for the city. Well, yesterday, I contact Mr. Barnes because I saw a number on my phone that I didn't recognize. And after I called the number, of course, it was him on the other end. And he wanted to know why I didn't like him. And I told her it wasn't about like. He wanted to know why I was supporting you. And I told him I would not discuss that with him. Therefore, he wanted to meet. And I said, perhaps so. I'll call you back. He continued to beg me to meet. I said no. Finally, I did get him off the phone simply because my blood sugar was dropping and I had to eat. Well, about 30 minutes later, my doorbell was ringing. And if anybody know me, and many of you do, if you don't contact me first, normally I don't go to the door. And according to his post on the True Rocky Mount, he not only rang my doorbell, he sit outside and waited for me. He not only did that, he filtered around my house and took pictures. All of this is on his True Rocky Mount page. I don't like that. We all have our differences, but I have never known of a candidate to go and stalk an individual just because they have endorsed someone. He was trespassing. He was carrying a gun, and I don't like it. And I'm giving this information this morning because what I have said about him, he demonstrated that character yesterday. He even admitted that he is a bully. And here's our First Lady, which we don't talk about a lot. She campaigned for no bullying. What message is he sending? How is he going to help the city or the people of Ward 3 with such demeanor? And I'm going to get off the phone, but I want him to know publicly that I have contacted the police department. I do plan to go down to the magistrate's office today, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary. He needs to stay off my premises. He have no reason to be here. It's freedom of speech. It's my opinion. So I hope and pray people do read his post, and you'll see what I'm saying about him. He thought he's doing me a disservice. He have alluded to the fact that you and I are having an affair. He has alluded to the fact that Councilman Knight and I have had an affair. Y'all know me. Y'all know what type of person I am. Don't do this, Tim. If you want to run for the office, run for the office. And stop being a Southern, rude, trying to be gentleman, because you are not. Thank you, Mr. Bronson, for allowing me to take up your time this morning and get this out to our community.
Thank you. 252-407-8432. That's 252-407-8432. Sounds like a very unfortunate incident occurred with her. Want to say good morning to Vernice Harris, Gwendolyn Swain, Alfreda Garrett, Perkins, Reginald Manning, Gloria Brake, Susan Vick, Deborah Gunter, Allison Williams, Andre Smiley, Alice Bailey, Lois Hines Bryant. Good morning to all of you there. And it looks like it's a sad time we get so offended for nothing. Yeah, I don't know what that was referring to. They may be referring to the Juneteenth comments there, but meanwhile, our previous president, Joe Biden, attended a Juneteenth service in Texas on yesterday, and talked about how people want to erase history, and so that's something to really think about as well. And then under that same breath, it was reported back in 2017 when Donald Trump was the president of the United States of America. He says, Melinda and I sends our warmest greetings to all those celebrating Juneteenth, a historic day recognizing the end of slavery. Though President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation 1863, news traveled slowly from Washington, D.C. to the southern states. More than 2 years later, on June the 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Grainer stood on the balcony in Galveston, Texas, to deliver the belated message of the then deceased president: all slaves were free. He again said this on June the 19th, 2007. Says that Granger's astonishing words inspired soulful festivals and emotional rejoicing. Over the years, as free men and free women left Texas, they took Juneteenth and its meaning with them. Today, we celebrate this historic moment in 1865 as we remember our nation's fundamental premise that all men and women were created equal. On Juneteenth, 2017, we honor the countless contributions made by African Americans to our nation and pledge to support American promise as the land of the free. Donald J. Trump, the White House, June 19th, 2007. And now it's the White House, June 20th, 2025, in which the press secretary said there was no tracking that she was aware of any penning of any statement from the president about Juneteenth. And again, I think that says a lot about where our current administration stands with freedom, based on past commentary that I just read from 2017. I think it says a lot about the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions of others as it relates to a day set aside of remembrance of the historical context of America, that there's a day that is a federal holiday that our state of North Carolina didn't really recognize either, that said, you know what, America had slaves before. It was enriched in the policy, in laws, that it was okay to treat individuals who have similar or same blood types, who need air and oxygen to breathe, who built some of the amazing structures in our country that we still see today, who are brilliant folk, but for the sole reason, because of the color of their skin, then they're not fit to have the same benefits and protections as others in America would have. And so here it is today. Our federal government spent millions of dollars just a few days ago to have a parade highlighting America's history. And that same tone, or similar tone, or no tone at all, should I say, was going towards ending the hundreds of years that people of color in this country worked on plantations, worked on public projects, and etc. And even then, even after the Emancipation Proclamation, there was another era of Jim Crow. Of you may be free, you may be this, but we're not going to share the same accommodations. We're not going to give you access to resources. And anytime you start developing neighborhoods, community, and a semblance that you may grow up to defy where we want you to be, we will tear down your communities. It's evidenced. We will redline communities to ensure that dollars and cents won't go there to hold up what you're building. You will remain in a place as a second-class citizen, and every now and then we will highlight 1, 2, 3, or a few of you to say it's not all bad in America, because you too, if you work hard, you too can be whatever it is in America. And so, oh, nope, they don't have the ability to get anywhere, and so that's why you need DEI. So we're going to end that, and we're going to give justification as to why we're not promoting people to this or having people here and this, that, and the third. And meanwhile, one will say, it's okay. Don't say anything about it. Don't bring color and race to it. But the reality is, no person of color brought color and race to anything. No. It was and is the thought process behind the desire to stay in power, the desire to gain wealth. That's essentially what it has been and what it continues to be today. And so in order to preserve what some would say their family worked hard for, these things and these protections must be in place. But on the contrast, there are millions of people who are buried in this earth because they were in land that was called free land, but they were never free. Whether they allegedly was whistling at a woman, whether they attempted to fight back because they felt as though what they were born into was wrong, whether they stood up to protect their families and ultimately lost their life, or whether they got too old by some calculations they can no longer do the work on the plantation. And that's something to really think about. I don't think there's anything wrong with having conversations like that, this, on Juneteenth and any other day of the year. I just don't. But it is a very, very concerning situation or thought process when they are many, whether black, whether white, whether any other color under the rainbow, who believes it's okay to be passive about some things and to be direct about others. Never forget your identity. Never allow someone to write your history. You say, well, I don't have to subscribe to that history. I choose to do something differently. No, you choose to be foolish. Because the very mountaintop you believe that you will climb and you believe that you will excel in this, you will find yourself in a desolate mountain of loneliness, of I can't associate with this, because oftentimes the very people you attempt to associate with denounce you. So this is not a us versus, it's just a reality. And I think if people would respect the reality more, respect that, you know what, there were some things that people have done and continue to do just blatantly wrong. It's wrong. There's no other way to say it. It's just wrong. It's just wrong that somehow or another, the fact that we are less than 13% of the United States population, but yet make nearly 85% of the prison population. Something is utterly wrong with those statistics. Now we have this attainment thought that, you know, I really want to be judged by the, as Dr. King said, the content of my character versus the color of my skin. Maybe people do want to do that. However, you got to ask yourself, do the judges really want to judge you based on that? Because on one end of the equation, you can have the desire to say, I want you to see just how great I am, how wise I am, how confident I am, how special I am, how smart I am, the ability that I have to do this or do that. I want you to see that I'm not like any of the other statistics. And so therefore, judge me based on the contents of my character. Would you? You know, I understand that you're still black. And there is something fundamentally wrong with you. Not everybody is like that. Let me say that. But there is, and you see it through hiring processes. You see it oftentimes through grant funding. You see it through the awarding of contracts. You see it through a number of things that no matter how great any person of color is, you look at what America is doing to the so-called illegal immigrants in our country who make contributions to the economy of this place we call America, but merely because of their immigration status or ultimately because of the browning of their skin. Oh, how quickly folks will jump on the bandwagon that they should be gone. This is not that America has gotten over its core of devaluing others. It is very much present. It is very much real. But no one wants to own up to it. Something to think about. Something to think about. Didn't get up here this morning to talk about that, but obviously, now we're here. Now we're here. Let's see what we got on Facebook. Let's see here. Good morning to Marvin Bowden. Wasn't the sole reason. Linda Cooper, good morning to you. What is America? Well, America is the boundaries that we see, right? So that is the only way to define America. America is the recognized 50 states in the District of Columbia. That is America. Watch Black Wall Street documentary again yesterday on their own channel. Think about that. Look at it. Gone. Go to Israel and other countries will answer your question. Contributions are enormous in back-breaking work of our race of people speak for itself. They cannot erase us because we are relevant for growth. Other races are actually in fear of our strength because they cannot understand how we overcome situations. They're not going to give us any more holidays after we act like this. And that is the thought process. We'll pause there. They're not going to give us any more holidays after we act like this. Which means that black folks in America are in a position that it is believed things have to be given to us. It is a belief that we are a subordinate group of people in our country, that we have to jump through hoops, we have to count jelly beans in a jar, that we have to know the Constitution of America, that we have to get straight A's on our report card. And if that was true, they will say some dumb school, you didn't earn this. I don't care, again, how much success black folks make in this country. If your judge oftentimes is a non-black judge, and I don't mean a judge in the courtroom, I mean a judge in general, some folks are astonished and in disbelief that you can even be as successful as you are. So at some point, we've got to stop looking through the glass and start looking at mirrors. I'll say that again. At some point, we've got to stop looking through windows or through glass and start looking at a mirror. Because that person that you see looking back at you should be your greatest cheerleader. That person that you see looking back at you should be your greatest inspiration. That person looking back at you should tell you that ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough to keep me from being and feeling great. Too often people slip into a psychosis of depression or stress or pain or worryation because they are looking at the wrong judges. They're looking at others to validate them. Why? That's my question. Why do you do it? So, holiday, no holiday, the fact of the matter is the ancestors of our American culture were wrong. And you cannot erase the wrong. You cannot hide the wrong. You cannot overlook the wrong. But accept the wrong and say, how do we do better going forward? You don't do better by saying that we're going to blatantly ignore Juneteenth. You don't do better by saying we've got to get rid of DEI. You don't do better by saying we don't need affirmative action anymore. These are elements that show that I really want to roll whatever successes we've had in America back. Why? Because I believe that people of color shouldn't be in certain places. That is a thought process. That is a message that some naive individuals who are black young boys and black young girls who are not getting the picture. As well as white young girls and white young boys, because they should be standing up for the very same message. Because if you teach people what true fairness is, if you teach people what true right is, they should understand it. Again, my thoughts today. The world says make an identity based on that. God says, Abraham, come out from your countrymen and do a new thing. I believe it was not given. We fought for it. Here's where we are in 2025. Juneteenth. Again, I was like, wow, the DMV is open today. I get it's a federal holiday. So the question is, then, will our Republican legislative body also say that as a southern state that upheld slavery in America, will you say we too would recognize Juneteenth as a state holiday? That is the question. That is the question. And I think that we don't need more. We don't need less. We need more of these days of reflection. Because everything should not be about dollars and cents. Everything shouldn't be about dollars and cents. It says he rested on the seventh day. Time to reflect and appreciate those things in which you worked hard for, but somehow or another we are allowing the message that you must work 24/7. And it's very much contradictory to even the current administration under the presidency of Donald Trump. He don't work 24/7. No one who expects to have any value or receipts from life would think a 24/7 contribution is worthwhile. Just doesn't make any sense. So these days of reflection, I hope we have more of them. Conversations, I hope we have more of them. I believe people of color are well enough to compete for any job or position without a hand up. If people of color compete for a job without a hand up, you're absolutely correct. They would get the job. Unfortunately, when people compete for a job, they do not get a hand up. They get a hand down, and you will hear words like you're overqualified. You know, I have not, and I'm not saying it isn't true, but I have not heard any person outside of the black race on social media anywhere who have said that I didn't get a job because I was overqualified. And I'm not saying that didn't happen, because I don't know the 300 plus million people living on this earth, right? But what I have found and what I have heard time and time again in the African American and black culture, that people were denied opportunity, not because they didn't have the skill set, not because they didn't have the ability, but because they had too much sense, because they had too much ability. And so therefore, I can't hire you. I don't know how many people can drink from some Kool-Aid to believe that black folk in America are treated like any other folk. That believe that people from our Latinx community are treated like any other folk. And let a black person get a nice house. They selling drugs, they scamming, they stealing, they doing something. Because ain't nowhere in the world that black, or they're a ball player or athlete, or they're in entertainment, ain't no way no black person supposed to have a car like that, supposed to have a house like that, even supposed to wear clothes like that. I'm just saying what I'm saying this morning because obviously other folks won't talk about it. Obviously, other folks will sit back and look at the things going on in our country and in our community and say, no, you're just overreacting. Over what? There it is again. When you call out truth, you're overly qualified, and now you're overly reacting. Now you're just doing too much. Because you can recognize real, because you can decipher from ignorance and facts. I'm, again, just talking at 21 minutes, but I'm going to be out here in like 9 minutes, so don't worry. I'll be gone. But as I always say, you're free to go. As I told somebody the other day, you're free to go. But that's something to think about. Today, tomorrow, and the next day, and any other day of the week that things go through. This thing called life. So I don't know what 2026 Juneteenth will look like from the White House or from any other house, but I would hope from your house that would really think about and encourage through oral tradition some of the sacrifices that folks had to make. And oftentimes it wasn't even sacrifices. It was some of the things that people had to endure. See, endurance and sacrifice are two different things. Sacrifice says that you was willing to do it. Endurance oftentimes will deal with something you had to go through that oftentimes was no fault of your own. But I had to endure this. I had to endure this pain. I had to endure the loss of a family member. I had to endure the baby getting snatched away from the mother. I had to endure seeing his wife being raped by the overseer, or not the overseer, but the owner. Had to endure. It's one of the sacrifices that folk made. Now, what are some sacrifices that once black folk got to some place during the Jim Crow era, they started then saying, well, if I endured that, surely I can sacrifice for this. So then the endurance shifted, or the word shifted, I would say, from endurance to sacrifice. And so they said, we're going to stand up and fight the injustices. Because why do we have to sit on the back of the bus? Why do we have to have separate water fountains? Why do we have to have this or not have that? And the same is true today. When you look at government spending, when you look at subsidy from government, I can tell you they have changed the word. They use subsidy for people who they look at other classes, low class and no class at all. And when it comes to another subsidy, they call it governmental contracting. And through governmental contracting across this country, there are so many minorities who are absent from the table in a percentage that matches population, in a percentage that matches the opportunity. And if you think I'm lying, go ask any county, go ask any school system, go ask any municipality, what is your minority contracting rate? And then do further dissecting of that, because when they say minority contracting rate, are you meaning white women as well? Because white women are a minority when it comes to contracting. So if white women is a minority for contracting, imagine what black women are when it comes to contracting. And again, that word is contracting, and other people it's called subsidy. Five more minutes and I'm going to get up out of here. This morning on Wncr-Tv Now, as we talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. I would hope throughout the day, tomorrow and the next day, that we really empower one another to be the difference. To not find yourself in a position where you succumb to the erasing of this place called America and what it has done and what it is attempting to do today. And when you do not call it out, you allow it to live. When you do not shout it out, you allow it to grow. And so if you're truly about eradicating the injustices that still happen to people this day, then I would encourage you to speak it out. And whether people say it or not, whether they deny it or not, I do believe, for me, this is me, that there is and was and continue to be the spirit of racial intentions that caused the demerger of our school system. I do believe that. And that is, and all those who champion it, all of those who supported it, was keeping that spirit alive. That's just me personally. Now, can the counties and should they hold their own? Sure. Will they do better? I have no earthly idea. Okay. When it comes to funding on both levels, and then what do you do with that funding and this, that, and the third, we shall see. But I will say money is not always the answer to things. It is actually having the individuals within the schools that they are free and have the flexibility to do their work. Too oftentimes there's so much other stuff that goes on within school systems that teachers are not allowed to be teachers. Obviously there's discipline problems that they're also handled, but then of course schools are not allowed to discipline. And so that's a double-edged situation. Then it goes back, well, the parents aren't parents. I get it. I get all of those points or pieces of the puzzle. And so at some point, when do we stop talking about it and start developing action that's going to move us to where we need to be? What we got up here, and I'm going to get up out of here after reading these last few things. Thanks, Bronze, for enlightening us about our history. Seems that we have some selected memories from whence we've come. Absolutely. While this is true, we're not given an opportunity. We are God's chosen people, and the devil knows it and will use anyone to keep us down and away from God. I concur. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today to Wncr-Tv Now as we talked about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. Don't forget, Pop's Diners open today, 132 South Church Street, downtown Rocky Mount, where we got Philly cheesesteaks, fish, and all these other kind of things today. Bring the whole family crew out for lunch and or some late dinner. Well, we close at 6, so it won't be too late. And, of course, the Juneteenth activities kick off tonight at 6 p.m. at 5 Points, downtown Rocky Mount. Go out throughout the whole entire weekend, all the way, I think, ending up or wrapping up on Sunday. So we'll see you next time on Wncr-Tv Now as we talk about things impacting our state, our city, and our nation. Make it a great and fantastic weekend. And educate, empower somebody. Most importantly, love on somebody.